Hi guys, so I wanted to do a video talking about my idea for an R-rated Spider-Man show. I wanted it to be an animated series rather than live action because the budget, if it was live action, the budget would be out of control, and I don't think a series like this would have would be given a big budget anyway. Um, so it would be animated like Invincible on Amazon Prime. That's what it would be like, kind of. Like that superhero show's like really graphic, and that'd be what it would be like. But so the first part I wanted to talk about the setting slash lore of the show. So it's set in a bleak cyberpunk, post-apocalyptic type alternate history version of the United States in the early 2000s. The Marvel superheroes existed in real life and have aged in real time. So Spider-Man debuted in 1962 at the age of 15. When the show starts in 2000, he's 53 years old. The series takes inspiration from various future storylines in the comics, including Earth X, Old Man Logan, and what was that one? Like the one with the Age of Apocalypse. It's kind of like that. So 5 years before the events of the show, the Red Skull started a nuclear war between Europe and the Middle East after the death of President Steve Rogers in an effort to eventually create a worldwide Nazi regime from the ashes. I think the 5 years might be shortened down to like a few, like a two, like 3 or 2 years. I haven't really came up with that yet, but Red Skull's physical body died due to old age, because he would have been like 100 years old. But he transferred his mind into a computer made up of MODOK's body parts. Latveria was intentionally obliterated during this war when Doctor Doom was absent, trying to save his mother, probably from Mephisto's realm, due to Red Skull wanting to cause further chaos. NYC and a few other smaller American cities including probably I think Detroit and maybe Chicago, were spared due to a defense system created by Reed Richards and Tony Stark. Much of the northern hemisphere was left irradiated, however. Mainland Europe is under the control of the Red Skull, under a really horrible Nazi regime, with mutants being like all exterminated and that and used as slave labor, with the capital being in Geneva. Captain Britain leads the UK in a military dictatorship. Ireland is mentioned to be a stable country with Banshee as the prime minister of that country, or the Taoiseach. Russia is under a restored czardom led by Black Widow and her husband Colossus. Maestro, who I changed from being the Hulk to Thor's daughter, whose name is Thrud, who's the mythological in the real Norse mythology. Thrud is Thor's daughter. Thrud's a villain in the third season. She basically wants revenge because there was a war between Asgard and Earth that happened in the early 90s, and it resulted in Thor's death. But they control the southern United States. The U.S. itself exists, with its control stretching from Maine to Delaware in the south to around Illinois in the west, but is fractured in its control. Canada is shown to be lawless with no central government after there was a mentioned Canadian Civil War. It's not really elaborated upon. Toronto and Montreal in that area is entirely filled with vampires, led by Blade's daughter. Blade himself is dead. Much of the world is shown as very melancholic and horrible, with various really bad crimes happening. And I've been thinking about condensing the series to 5 seasons instead of 6, in order to represent the 5 stages of grief for Spider-Man and the loss of his friends and family. Because prior to the series, there's a lot of bad stuff that happens to Spider-Man, and a lot of it is just him recover. The whole show is about him recovering and having to deal with threats. So it's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. In the first season, the villain is the Crime Master, who isn't the one from the 60s, the really minor villain, but it's actually Green Goblin, Norman Osborn. There's in the show tries to make you think that it's actually Gwen Stacy, because like Spider-Man goes to Gwen Stacy's grave and like her corpse isn't there, but it's revealed that that was a ruse and it's actually Norman Osborn. The villains in the second season are Doctor Octopus, who wants to kill all of humanity as a last send off before he dies of old age. And Doctor Octopus also makes an appearance in the first season. The Punisher is the other villain who escapes his Supermax prison with Beetle's help. Beetle in this continuity is not Abner Jenkins, the first one. It's actually Miles Morales. I'll talk about that later. But the Punisher helps Doctor Octopus, as he now believes that all humans are sinners. So instead of killing criminals, Punisher is just killing like regular people because he's completely insane. So the villains in the third season are the Dark Avengers, who had like a low profile throughout the series, and they're led by the mysterious Iron Patriot. They consist of Iron Patriot, the original Golden Age Human Torch, Jim Hammond, a new Ant-Man, Eric O'Grady, Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, Spider-Girl, Spider-Man's daughter's half-alive body because she was killed prior to the series, possessed by the Venom symbiote, Sentry Robert Reynolds, Hawkeye, who is actually Bullseye, Wolverine, who's Daken, Wolverine is dead, and Ares. It's revealed that Iron Patriot is Deadpool, who is in the supporting cast in the show. So it's kind of a shock. But the villains of the fourth season are Maestro, who is Thrud, and Carnage, Cletus Cassidy. Maestro tries to invade the northern United States while Carnage causes chaos in New York. In the final episode of the season, Thrud is possessed by the Carnage symbiote, and Hulk alongside Spider-Man and others fight her. And the villains in the fifth season are Iron Man. Again, I might condense these because I wanted to do the 5 stages of grief. But Iron Man, who's Tony Stark, who has turned bad. The reason why is because he was it talks about his alcohol. It doesn't really get into it, but it implies he was an alcoholic, like in the comics. And he gave the role to James Rhodes. James Rhodes, a War Machine, died as Iron Man, and his other friends also died, and so Iron Man has no friends, and he's really, I don't know, he's just really depressed. And the Red Skull, who rules Europe, who tried to conquer America after it was weakened from Maestro's invasion. And the villain in the final and longest season is a version of Morlun, who leads an army of energy vampires to conquer the universe. Morlun is killed, but everyone, including Spider-Man himself, dies. Peter's consciousness is merged into his counterpart in a paradise dimension created by Franklin Richards, and the series ends with Peter Parker dying as a very elderly man, years later, surrounded by his friends and family. And there are smaller storylines throughout the series dealing with Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom is like an old man in a wheelchair. I'll show you his design I'll show you all the designs. I thought the people in the show generally look like. So Kraven the Hunter, I'd like to adapt the Kraven's Last Hunt storyline. Mysterio, I'm not sure what to do. I know I wanted him to have cancer like he did in the Daredevil story in the comics. I wanted him to do that. The Chameleon's children, who are like twins. Chameleon himself is dead. Vulture's long dead, but he created like a robot, like a gigantic robot. And Sandman, who's like a rotting, like Sandman's, like the toxins in him are killing him, and like he's constantly disintegrating and like reintegrating. It talks about Miles Morales, Peter Parker's relationship. So Miles Morales was Kid Arachnid. He was Spider-Man's sidekick, but then they broke off because Miles blamed Peter for May Day Parker's death, who was Spider-Man's daughter. He blamed him for her death. And there's clones of Spider-Man created by the Jackal, who's Miles Warren. And some of the characters, some of these are very minor characters. Some of them have a bigger role, so they're just like one appearances. So Alicia Masters Grimm, so she married the Thing, who's the only surviving member of the Fantastic Four. American Dream Shannon Carter, who's Captain America's daughter. She only appears for cameo appearance. Angry Eagle, who's the Angel's son. He only appears a very minor appearance. Anti-Venom Eddie Brock. I wanted to make Venom into I wanted Anti-Venom. I'm not sure what his role is, but I want Anti-Venom to appear. There's a bunch of Ant-Men and Ant-Women who appear, like when Spider-Man's assembling people to fight Maestro and that. So there's Hank Pym, who's like retired, and Ant-Woman Cassie Lang, who's still operating. There's Archangel Warren Worthington III, who's the original Angel. He was left deformed by Apocalypse, and he's like a hawk-like creature. And the Eric O'Grady Ant-Man's treated like kind of like a joke character. Like he always gets picked on all the time. He's like the Deep in the Seven show. Ares, I don't know what to really do with him. Or Hercules. Like I think maybe I'll have Hercules as being dead. I mean, a lot of characters are dead in the show. There's Armageddon, who's like a minor X-Men. There's Banshee. There's Beast, who's one of the X-Men. He has like white fur. So I explained most of this about Miles Morales. And he teams up with Punisher. He becomes an assassin. He looks like the Ultimate Universe Beetle. And then he teams up with and betrays Punisher because he realizes Punisher wants to kill everybody and he's too dangerous to be left alive. And later he helps Peter fight the Dark Avengers. And then there's a scene where they reconcile and cry at each other's arms. And in Franklin Richards' Paradise Dimension, Miles is Spider-Man. And he's married to Spider-Woman Mayday Parker and has children with her. So there's Ben Parker, Uncle Ben. He appears in a few flashbacks. Benji Parker, who's Spider-Man's infant son. He died of radiation poisoning. Betty Brant, who's the owner of the Daily Bugle. I was thinking about like having Spider-Man having a relationship with her in the show. There's Black Bolt. The Inhumans disbanded as a society, but they're still in like they're in like human society. They're intermixed with like mutants and humans. So this new Black Bolt, who's the original son, is fairly powerless. I'm not sure what role he's gonna play though, but the Black Panther, there are two Black Panthers. There's the original and Black Panther's son, Azari. They appear near the end of the show. There's Black Widow, who's the Tsarist of Russia. Blade, I'm not sure if I'm gonna have Blade as dead or alive. I like an episode where Spider-Man goes and fights the vampires with Blade. Blue Streak, who is Quicksilver's daughter. I don't know, this very minor character. Bullseye, who appears, he's impersonating Hawkeye. Buzz Grimm, who's one of the Thing's sons. So Cable, Nathan Summers, he's a lot younger. He's not like the older Cable. He looks a lot younger. The Captain America, James Rogers, he only makes like a cameo appearance. He's Captain America's other son. Captain America doesn't have children in the main universe. So it says Captain America was elected president in 1992 amid an increased amount of supercrime since the 1960s. He was assassinated in his first term by Quicksilver aboard Air Force One, who also killed himself, which caused an enraged Red Skull to start a nuclear war. The reason Quicksilver killed Captain America is because Cap accidentally killed Magneto in a fight in the 1980s. Cap's body was stolen by Doctor Doom, who resurrected Cap, put him into stasis to experiment on, and Doctor Doom intended on transferring his mind into Captain America. And Spider-Man and Mr. Immortal, who's like a minor hero, or he's one of Spider-Man's friends in the show. He frees Cap, and he plays an important role in the later seasons. So there's Captain Britain, Brian Braddock. He's like the dictator of Britain. There's Carnage. Now some of these might play like, they might not be, some of the mutants in this like might just be like local heroes who are friends of Spider-Man instead of being a part of the X-Men. So there's Chameleon Twins. They're like, I think they be mutants too, the Chameleon Twins. They're inspired from the Ultimate Universe. There's some more like Chuck Grimm, who's Thing's other son. Colossus, who's the Tsar of Russia. He left the X-Men. There's Cosmic Ray, who's Johnny Storm's son. Johnny Storm and the rest. So what happened to the Fantastic Four was there was a battle in Maine between them and Namor, with Franklin Richards also being there, and Doctor Doom orchestrated like them to fight, and Namor accidentally killed Invisible Woman, and it resulted in Franklin Richards going berserk, and he basically killed everyone there, including like his own father and that, and then Franklin Richards disappeared after. The Thing was the only one that survived, but he lost his arm and his eye from that. And later on in the series, it's revealed that Doctor Doom has Reed Richards' brain, and like, so they kind of revived the Fantastic Four by having his brain. And so Cosmic Ray lives with his is with Crystal Storm, who's Johnny Storm's ex-wife or widowed wife. And yeah, they formed the Fantastic Four in one episode. Later on, they reformed the Fantastic Four with Thing and the other, and Thing's sons and that. And there's Cyclops Scott Summers, who's still the leader of the X-Men. He's like Professor X basically. There's Danielle Cage, who's Luke Cage's daughter. There's Daredevil Matt Murdock, who's like a very important character. He's seen as Spider-Man's like best friend in the show. He stopped being a lawyer and he opened up like a gym, but then in the third season, Iron Patriot murders him, and it drives Spider-Man really crazy. But Doctor Doom, he's a villain in the show. He tries to manipulate events happening in the show, but he's kind of enfeebled. And like he's sort of like senile. There's Doctor Strange, Stephen Strange. I don't know I don't know if I keep him the same age, like looking the same age or looking older. There's some more mutants. There's Blaile Brooks, who's Blade's daughter, becomes Dracula. There's Electro Max Dillon. I thought about having Electro as like a mob boss, one of the mob bosses under Crime Master, or as like a businessman, but he's one of the villains. Emma Frost is a minor villain. She's seen as like a cult leader. There's another mutant. There's Flash Thompson, who's seen in the Vietnam War flashbacks, because Spider-Man in this world was in the Vietnam War. He was a veteran of Vietnam, and Flash Thompson died with him. There's Forge, who lives with Hawkeye and Hawkeye's son in the American West. They're fighting Iron Man. There's Franklin Richards, who's a very important character. He has his own like dimension in that. Well, he stays away. Because he's too powerful, and he stays away from the main world instead. Created his own world. There's Gambit, Remy LeBeau. He's kind of like a wanderer. He's not with the X-Men anymore. He's kind of like a bum. But Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze, he's a circus performer. Goliath, Bill Foster. I had him still alive in this. He's assembled by Spider-Man. There's Gorgon, one of the Inhumans. Green Goblin, Harry Osborn. So Harry Osborn was Norman Osborn's son. Um, and 10 years prior to the show, Harry killed Spider-Man's daughter, and resulted in Spider-Man beating Harry to death. And that's just how she died. But Gull, who's unnamed, she's Angel's daughter, I think. Gwen Stacy was Spider-Man's ex fiance, and she was actually pregnant by Spider-Man, but she died. She was killed by Green Goblin, like in the comics. I was thinking about having like the Gray Goblin, like Spider-Man, like having Spider-Man's children revealed to be alive. I don't know if I'll actually have that though, but it's an interesting concept. The Hulk Bruce Banner, he looks kind of like the Hulk in the Hulk the End show or comic book. The human, to both the Jim Hammond Human Torch, he's like kind of just like a weapon of the government. He has his sidekick Toro he was killed by a sniper in the Korean War. Toro was killed in the Korean War. Iceman Bobby Drink, he's a retired superhero. Iron Fist, I wanted him to have like one arm. He's one of Luke Cage's friends. Luke Cage is the commissioner of the police department, like in Earth X. He's a major supporting character. There's Iron Patriot. Hammerhead is he's still alive. He's one of the minor like mob bosses. There's Hawkeye, Clint Barton, Husk, who's one of the X-Men. Hypno Hustler. I wanted like to adapt the scene Spider-Man Reign where he like gets shot. I wanted to adapt that. At some point, like he gets or he comes out of retirement, but he gets, or maybe I keep him around for longer. I don't know. Iron Man, James Rhodes, who took over for Tony Stark when he was an alcoholic. Yeah, but what happened was he fought the Grey Gargoyle, and he was turned to stone, and he died in like if there's a comic book where Iron Man, it's like a Punisher versus the Marvel Universe or something like that. And in that story, it's like an alternate universe. Iron Man got like put in stasis, like he couldn't get out of his armor, and he like died in his armor, and that's what I wanted to do. Like instead of his War Machine was killed by Grey Gargoyle, and Iron Man, he's one of the main villains. He later redeems himself after by fighting Morlun though. He survives. He builds like a giant robot to fight Morlun. J2, who's Juggernaut's son, Zane Yama, Jackal, Miles Warren, Jessica Jones, Cage, Luke Cage's wife. J. Jonah Jameson's still alive, but he's like kind of like a senile old man. He's just kind of wandering around New York. Jubilee is one of the X-Men. Juggernaut. I thought about having like Juggernaut live in Canada. I'm not really sure what to do with him, but I like Spider-Man, Juggernaut to meet each other in the show again. Kangaroo, who's only seen in like the 70s flashbacks. He's dead by the events of the modern show, or the show. And Karnak, who's one of the Inhumans. Kid Goliath, who's Goliath's son, Bill Foster's son, instead of his nephew. In the comics, it's actually his nephew, but I imagine his son. Kingpin, Wilson Fisk. Kingpin's in a vegetative state. He's still alive, but he can't eat anything. He's like in Spider-Man Reign, Kingpin's in that comic, and he can't like eat solid food or anything. And that's kind of like the Rose basically takes care of him. Who's Richard Fisk, who's the Kingpin's son. Kitty Pryde, one of the X-Men. She's not with Colossus in this world. There's Kraven the Hunter. There's Liz Allen. I don't really know what to do with that character, Liz Allen. Lizard Kirk Connors. He's like he managed. He's in his lizard form, but he's actually good. Lizard's actually good in this. He helps Spider-Man. There's Loki, who's still alive, and he's manipulating Thrud. There's Luke Cage, who's commissioner of the New York Police Department, and he helps Spider-Man with like police things and that. There's Maestro, Magneto, who dies before the show. Captain America accidentally killed him with his shield. Mary Jane Watson Parker, who's Mary Jane died before because she was killed in a nuclear exchange. May Parker, who's only seen like flashbacks, she dies when Spider-Man went to Vietnam. She died. Peter Parker was drafted to Vietnam War. Medusa is a minor character. It's Black Bolt's mother in this. The new Black Bolt's mother. Mephisto appears very briefly, but he's really fat now. He's like a really fat demon. Metalik, who's Colossus's daughter. There's two Miss Marvels. I thought about having Carol Danvers in like a coma or something, and her coming out of the coma. And the other Miss Marvel is Kamala Khan. Mr. Fantastic, I was saying, having his brain, like him just being a brain or something like that, like in the MC2 continuity. Mr. Immortal, who's one of Spider-Man's friends in the show. Mr. Negative, who's one of the mob bosses. He's trapped in his own dimension. He was one of the mob bosses because New York was in a gang war in the 70s, and there was he's one of, and Spider-Man saves him from this dimension. There's Moon Knight, Mark Spector. I've been thinking about. I'm not sure really what to do with his character. He's kind of just wandering around like Egypt. But Morlun, who's the main antagonist in the final season. Mysterio, I'm not sure what to do. He's one of the minor villains. Mysterio is. Namor, who dies before the beginning of the show. Nick Fury, who lives in the Savage Land, and he's like in hiding. Nocturne, who's Nightcrawler's daughter. Owl, Leland Owlsley, who's one of the mob bosses. Penance, Robert Baldwin. Normie Osborn. That's Green Goblin's grandson. I'm not really sure what to do with him either. I think he'd be just like a good guy though, but Green Goblin will try to turn him bad. But Penance, I'm not sure. I was thinking about having Penance as one of the Avengers, but I think the Avengers are kind of like the Dark Avengers. There's kind of too many people on there. I don't know much sure if I changed that or not. Punisher is one of the main antagonists. There's Psylocke, who's with her brother in Britain. There's Quicksilver, who died before the show. There's Rachel Summers, who's Cyclops' daughter, is one of the X-Men. There's a lot of X-Men. But again, some of the X-Men I just have as like local new heroes around New York. And there's Red Skull. And yeah, Red Skull's digital image of him is him wearing a Captain America costume, like an Old Man Logan. And Red Skull's destroyed by Captain America. Rhino, I was having Rhino be like a smart, there's a storyline in the show where like Rhino fights like an imposter of himself in a robot suit, and he's like, Rhino's more about like he's still alive, but he's like more about like philosophy, and that he's become like a philosopher and like a poet, and he doesn't want to be a villain anymore. But Rick Jones, I'm not sure what to do with that character. I was thinking about like in Marvel Ruins, that story where Hulk is a mass of tumors. I was thinking about having Rick Jones like be like the tumors or whatever. Rogue is one of the X-Men. She and Gambit broke up. Rose is one of the mob bosses. There's Salamander, who is Nightcrawler's son. Sam Wilson, whose Falcon is the President of the United States. Sandman, who's like a disintegrating. Sasquatch is one of the X-Men. I'm not sure what to do with the rest of Alpha Flight. They might be in like one episode or something. Scarlet Witch is used by the Dark Avengers to she's used to like alter time, and that she's like kind of like she's a mentally impaired state, like she can't really think for herself, so she gets manipulated by Iron Patriot. Scorpion is Mac Gargan. I was thinking about him being retired and being a detective, like having a detective agency, and he's not the villain anymore. Sentinel X, I'm not sure. I think that's just one of the X-Men. Silver Surfer or Sentry is kind of like he is in the comics, but it's revealed later that like their Sentry was a hero, but their memories got wiped out of Sentry. All the heroes had their memories wiped of him. Silver Surfer, I had an episode idea where like Silver Surfer and Star-Lord came to Earth to see what the Earth, because they hadn't been on Earth in a long time, and they came to like visit what the Earth was like, and they see it's like ruined in that. There's more X-Men characters, Siren, Teresa Cassidy. So Spider-Man. So Peter Parker, an extremely depressing life. So Aunt May died in the late 1960s while Spider-Man was in Vietnam, and there's a lot of flashbacks of him being in Vietnam. Peter Parker was engaged to Gwen Stacy, who was also pregnant with his child, but she was killed by the Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, in 1973, who's killed by his own glider, like in the comics. And Peter later remarried with Mary Jane Watson, as 2 children, May and Mayday, and Benjamin Parker, Benji Parker, like in the MC2 continuity. May Parker would be Spider-Girl at a young age, but she was killed by Harry Osborn. And Harry would be beaten to death, his own best friend. And they would go to Buffalo in order to get Mary Jane out of her severe depression, because she was very depressed after her daughter died. But then the city was destroyed during the nuclear exchange, and Mary Jane died instantly, while Benjamin would die of radiation poisoning several months later. And because of all the heroes dying or becoming evil, and all the PTSD he has, Spider-Man's a very different person. He uses a lot of like dark humor, cynical, and he's much more violent, and he has like alcoholism, and he's intense outbursts. And he goes from job to job like he does in other media, and he has like bad luck in that, like he always, like something bad always happens to him. He wears his Last Stand costume until the 4th season. Maestro destroys it. Then he wears a cloth version of the black suit, like a cloth version of the symbiote suit, until the final season he has his original costume back. And at the end of the series, his consciousness is transferred to Franklin Richards' Paradise Dimension, and he dies of natural causes. And Star-Lord, again, I was talking about that episode where Star-Lord was goes to Earth in order to check it out. There's all the Pyms, more of Ant-Man's family. So I don't think they're active superheroes. Actually, no, they would be, but like they're recruited by Spider-Man. They're not really major characters. Storm is Black Panther's wife in this. So she lives in Wakanda. Sunfire is in Japan. I don't know what to do with that character. Susie Marco is Sandman's daughter. I don't know. I think she would team up with Spider-Man to fight Anti-Venom. And a story like that, like she'd fight Anti-Venom. She probably like she'd be one of the supporting characters for Spider-Man. The Toro is only in a flashback. He gets his head blown off by a sniper. Torque, Tower, Triton, they're like X-Men and humans. Venom, so Spider-Girl has her corpse possessed by the Venom symbiote. And Spider-Man has to like kill his own daughter at one point of the show. Vision is really messed up. He's only like a bunch of wires in that, and people don't know he's alive, but he's like still alive, but he doesn't want to be. Vulture, he's dead, but he's a he has a giant robot with Spider-Man has to fight. The Warpath was one of the X-Men. The Wasp. So I was thinking about having Hank Pym and Wasp divorced. Wolverine is Daken, who's Wolverine's son. The actual Wolverine died fighting Apocalypse. He sacrificed himself, but then Doctor Doom found his body and transformed him into like a robot type thing, like a skeleton type creature, and Spider-Man has to fight him, the skeleton creature. And X-23 is Wolverine's clone. I don't know how much of a role she'd play in the show. But there's the storylines: Crime Master, Punisher / Doctor Octopus, Dark Avengers / Iron Patriot, Metro / Carnage, Iron Man / Red Skull, and Morlun. And the soundtrack of the show with the songs, I like Reflections of My Life by Marmalade, which is played during the final credits. Can't Take My Eyes Off You by Frankie Valli. Point of No Return by Pickety Wick. Yesterday Once More by the Carpenters. Long Gone Lonesome Blues by Hank Williams. How Can You Mend a Broken Heart by Bee Gees. Bad Side of the Moon by April Wine. The Weight by the Band. Yellow River by Quit Christie. Sugar Sugar by Archies. When Tomorrow Comes Tomorrow by White Plains. Another Somebody Done Somebody Wrong song by B.J. Thomas. Zooby Zooby Zoo by Jillian Hillis. Old Girl by Chillites. I was thinking of on that play during like some sort of sex scene or something. American Pie by Don McLean. Played near the end of the show in like a montage history scene. So Deep Purple by Donnie Marie Osmond. It's played during like a torture scene. Punisher is like torturing like a criminal or something. Brother Loves Traveling, Salvation Show by Neil Diamond. Sundown by Gordon Lightfoot, and Hand Me Down World by Guess Who. So that's some of the songs I had for the show. Yeah, I'll just show you guys the character designs. I created none of them, but yeah, I'll just cut back to that. So that's Ares. This is Ares. Here's the Dark Avengers. So Miss Marvel is supposed to be Kamala Khan, and Marvel Boy is not present. Instead of it's Human Torch. Yeah, and Spider-Man is Spider-Woman. There's Miles Morales, what he might look like. I couldn't find a good picture of him as like an adult. There's what he looks like as the Beetle. There's Spider-Man's infant son who died. There's Betty Brant, who runs the Daily Bugle now. There's Black Widow, who's the Queen of Russia. There's Bullseye, what he looks like, outside of the Hawkeye costume. There's Captain America, so he looks like he does in like Earth X. I don't know where I got this one too. Yeah, so this is fan art, so I'm sorry about using that, but I don't think that's what Miss Marvel would look like anyway. Colossus, so that's his Earth X, so he's the Tsar of Russia. There's Johnny Storm, Ray Storm, Johnny Storm's son. There's Crime Master. There's Crystal. They wouldn't be wearing Fantastic Four costumes at first, they'd just be wearing regular clothing, because the Fantastic Four wouldn't exist yet. And there's Cyclops, what he looks like. Yeah, he managed to gain control of his optic beams. So he doesn't have to wear glasses anymore. There's Daken, Wolverine's evil son. He's a psychopath. There's Daredevil. So this is fan art. So again, I'm sorry about using your fan art. But yeah, that's what I think Daredevil would look like. So he runs like a gym. There's Doctor Doom. So he's like very like out of shape. Like, but he's very cunning and he manipulates people in the show. He's very cunning. There's what Doctor Octopus looks like. He's like he can't move at all. He's very old and he can't move. Uh, Doctor Strange, that might be what he looks like. I was thinking about maybe keeping him the same age, looking the same age, because there's a lot of like men with beards in the show. Electro, that might be what he looks like. He's like more of a public figure. He's kind of like more like the Kingpin. That's what Emma Frost looks like. She appears in one episode. She's very evil. She like brainwashes like children. She's very evil. There's Forge, what Forge would look like. There's Franklin Richards, what Franklin Richards look like. Galactus is not in. His corpse landed on Earth, so he's dead. So you briefly see his like corpse. Now there's Ghost Rider, so he's a stage performer because apparently he no longer has a pact with Mephisto anymore. So he's just left in his own body and just do whatever he wanted, so he became a stuntman again. This, I don't think I'd keep this. I don't know. I don't know if I'd ever bring Gwen Stacy back like they did. I don't think I'd do that. So this was just an early idea. So Hawkeye, that's what he looks like, an old man Logan. So he and Forge are fighting Iron Man's forces because Iron Man's in California. Well, California was destroyed by Graviton, the villain Graviton, and that's what happened. And there's the Hulk, what he looks like. There's Human Torch. This is like a Terminator. I don't think Human Torch would be like a bad. I think he would help Spider-Man, the Jim Hammond one, the Golden Age Human Torch. I think it would help Spider-Man. But that's what he looks like in the Paradise Dimension. That's Invisible Woman in the Paradise Dimension. That's what Iron Man, I think, would look like. Because he'd be like all beat up in that. And old. So that's the iron armor he uses to fight Morlun. There's Iron Patriot. That's J. Jonah Jameson. There's Juggernaut. I think I make him look a lot older though. There's what the Kingpin looks like. So looks very bad. There's Kitty Pryde. There's Kraven. I don't think I'd make Kraven age either. That's what he looked like in the Kraven's Last Hunt storyline. That's what Lizard looks like. He's like kind of just a normal guy. There's Loki. There's Luke Cage. He would wear like a police commissioner's uniform, like an Earth X. I make him look like he did in Earth X. I wouldn't make him look like that. That's Thor's daughter. That's one of the ideas. This was an AI art too, so sorry. I'm using the fan art, but that's what Thor's daughter might look like. There's Magneto. I thought about keeping him alive for the show, but I saw like in the background he died. That's Mary Jane. That's hers or as Spider-Man's husband or wife. That's what Mephisto looks like. This this was a discarded idea from. I was gonna keep Mr. Fantastic alive. I think he'd just be a brain though. But that's what Moon Knight I think would look like when they meet him. There's Morlun. He's villain in the final season. There's Mysterio. That's what Mysterio looks like usually. And this is another good idea for what Mysterio might look like. So it's Nick Fury. That's what Nightcrawler looks like. He leads the resistance in Europe against Red Skull, along with his children. That's what Penance looks like. That's what Punisher looks like. And that's another idea. That's fan art too. From Punisher. There's Red Skull, what he looks like. This is Rick Jones. My idea for having Rick Jones is like a bunch of tumors. There's Rogue. There's what Sandman looks like. So he's like constantly descending. He's dying of like poisoning because his sand can't hold up anymore. So he's just constantly reassembling, deassembling. There's what Scarlet Witch looks like. There's Sentry. There's Silver Surfer. Yeah, I thought about like having Silver Surfer's wife or whatever in the show too, maybe. There's what Spider Girl looked like before she died. That's what she does. She doesn't look like this. Yeah, she's basically just like a bunch of bones. She looks a lot worse. She doesn't look like alive. So she's like a rotting corpse on one side. So she's Venom basically. And Spider-Man has to kill her. That's what she looked like in high school. There's a bunch of ones with what Spider-Man looks like. Yeah, this was an old. Yeah, I'd have him have a beard and long hair, but I wouldn't have him. He'd be a lot older. He'd be in his 50s and 60s. So, yeah, that's him. A bunch of them with him. That's what I think he'd look like. More like what you look like. And that's like my banner for the thing, for the show. That's Peter Parker, like a few years before the show happened. I'd like to readapt the scene where he gets shot by people, but Miles takes a bullet for him. Miles Morales takes a bullet for Spider-Man. And like because they think like there's one part where they think like they're hunting him down, Spider-Man or something, and like soldiers are hunting him down, and yeah, so instead of Peter being shot like here, Miles comes out and saves him. And there's Spider-Man 2099. I thought about like having a crossover episode where Spider-Man 2099 from Across the Spider-Verse appears and like tries to recruit Spider-Man from this world, but he refuses. There's what like Spider-Man, so it'd be like Batman and Robin kind of. There's Spider-Man in Vietnam. That's fan art, so sorry about that. But yeah, that's what Spider-Man looked like when he's in Vietnam. That's more like what Spider-Man would look like. Yeah, that's fan. Again, a lot of this is fan art, so I'm very sorry. That's Star-Lord. That's Storm. I think she would look just more like normal Storm. It would never look like that. That's what Thing looks like. He's the only survivor, but Reed Richards' brain is reactivated later, so he's alive. There's Venom. I think I'm not gonna have Venom. I think I'm just gonna have Anti-Venom, and then have Mayday Parker as Venom later on. So that's from Spider-Man Reign. That's what Vision looks like. Vulture, this wouldn't be Vulture's design. That's what James Rhodes looks like. He was statuified by he was put into a statue by Grey Gargoyle, and Grey Gargoyle was killed. That's what Wolverine looks like. So Spider-Man has to fight him. He's reanimated by Doctor Doom. And that's the end of that. So I hope you guys like this, my idea for this show. If you could like, comment, and subscribe, that'd be appreciated. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys later.